We can see bullet strikes here, actually on the headstone from the Troubles. Hello, my name's Seamus Breslin, and me and another group of volunteers do tours around Derry City Cemetery, exploring our great history and heritage, which is literally the history of the world is carved on the headstones, and the stories are in here. So we're at the final resting place of John Hume and his wife Pat, two great human beings, and you wouldn't believe the number of visitors want to come here and pay their respects to this great peacemaker, great statesman. I think it's all very nice too as well to tell a story that he was a great fan of Derry City. It wasn't deliberately chosen this spot. It was just as if it would have been anybody else in Derry that died that day. No special treatment, but he's overlooking the Brandywell, the football ground that he loved so well. And we have a wee Gaelic inscription here, and a wee oak leaf. And this is a special stone from Annashone, Donegal, that John and Pat loved so much. So we're here, it's known locally as the Bloody Sunday plot. I'm sure you have all heard of the massacre that occurred that day, and a lot of people are surprised to find that they don't have Oglan urns and died for Ireland and flagpoles and that, because they were innocent victims. So there was an idea that it would be hugely symbolic to bury the 13 victims in a row. But all I can tell you is my own cousin was killed that day, Jackie Duddy, and his mammy, my Aunt Maureen, had died in 1968. Father Daly, Bishop Edward Daly, who says his last words when he died on Bloody Sunday was for his mammy. So they wanted him to be buried by his mammy. But 5 of the victims are buried here in a row. The Nashes, Patrick Doherty, Hugh Gilmore, Michael Kelly, all neighbours of ours, all family, friends. There's people coming here from all over the world to pay their respects and to hear the story of the true story of what happened that day. So we're now at the Irish Republican Socialist plot, the final resting place of two men, Pat O'Hara and Michael Devine, who died in 1981, hunger strikers. And many visitors from all over the world, many people from all over Ireland come here to pay respects to them. So this is the World War II graves, and most of them, as you can see, have anchors because there was a huge naval base here. In fact, people say that this port, the city, was the key to victory in the whole Battle of the Atlantic. And amongst the stories here is a ship called HMS Curacao, and we have 5 victims from the sinking of the Curacao. And the Curacao is a remarkable story, and the story is thus. After the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and America entered the war, they declared war against Germany as well, and there was a meeting between the chiefs of staff and the American president, highest level, and they explained to him that there was a huge issue involved here, that if they were going to fight the Germans, they had to get to Europe, and the only way to get there and get lots of men over was across the Atlantic Ocean, and it was infested with U-boats sinking. And they said if they start sinking our guys before they even get over there, our people at home will be saying our sons died before they even got there. So they came up with a solution that there was a huge big liner called the Queen Mary, and it's now a hotel in California. And they says, convert that to a troop ship. They painted it zigzag. It held 10,000 men, and it departed the first batch of GIs coming to Europe to fight the Nazis. And it left New York, and the captain was handed an envelope. Special orders said, do not stop until you safely reach port. That means if they had seen the Titanic in distress, they would have had to just fly on. So anyway, it was an uneventful journey. The guys were enjoying it. They're on this luxury liner coming to Europe. But whenever it reached the coast of Ireland here, it was going to Liverpool, but it had to start slowing down. And when it started to slow down, it was at risk then from the U-boats. So they sent out the Curacao and another ship to help protect it. And the story goes that the Queen Mary was zigzagging. The Curacao was zigzagging, and one thought the other wouldn't zigzag under the other's path, and the Queen Mary cut the Curacao in half, and 300 odd sailors plunged under the icy waters, and the Queen Mary did not stop to safely reach port, just sailed on. Luckily, the other boat there picked up a few survivors, but most of them drowned, and it was kept a secret until after the war. It was kept a great military secret. When they held an inquiry after the war, and I was reading up on it, there's documentaries on YouTube, it wasn't really about the poor men that died and all that. It seemed to be more about who's going to pay compensation. The Admiralty, or the owners of the Queen Mary or whatever, and that, which is quite sad. But what's even sadder again is the fact that one of the victims was a Catholic, so he's buried up in the Catholic section away from his comrades. When we started taking the tours, asked the guys that work on here that have been working a long time, I says, when you're working on here, you're cutting the grass, where or what story here is it that particularly stuns you and makes you stop and think? And they said that it was here. After Bloody Sunday, we have a young guy, 15-year-old boy, Manus Derry, murdered by British troops, May 1972 after Bloody Sunday. Another young guy, Wally Best, lived just over here, was in the British Army and in Cyprus in Germany, and he came home. When he heard Manus Derry had died, he went and paid his respects at Manus Derry's wake house, not knowing that he was going to be abducted later on that night and killed by the IRA. And now this 18-year-old boy from the British Army, erected by his comrades, lies side by side with a guy from the same community, went to the same school. So murdered by British troops, serving the British Army. Wally Best, not unusual about serving in the British Army up until Bloody Sunday. It was a very, very, very popular career choice for young men from Catholic nationalist areas. So we're now at one of the focal points in the city cemetery, and it's what would be known as the Provisional IRA Plot. Men are proud and honoured to be considered as patriots, and so they're buried here, and as you can see, it's quite elaborate. And chief amongst these is Martin McGuinness over here. The centre point is Columb, was a great Irish warrior, didn't want to die on his knees, so he tied himself to the tree. A lot of big statements over the years, policy changes would have been announced here during the Easter commemorations by significant figures in the Republican movement, such as Gerry Adams and John McStephen and that. We have this entire family here, the Murray family, that died 16th April 1941. We've got the Richmond family here, wiped out, victim of the Pennyburn bombing 15th April 1941, and what it is, you wouldn't believe it, but there was a housing estate built in Derry, and it was specifically named Mazines Park after the Battle of Mazines in World War I, and it was designed specially to house the veterans of World War I that had fought the Germans. And they're lying on their beds during World War II on an Easter night, and one German bomb drops in this city, which was a hugely important port for the Battle of the Atlantic, and it landed in Mazines Park and wiped out 13 people, families of veterans who had fought the Germans in World War I, ended up dying with a German bomb in World War II. Because of censorship, they weren't allowed to say where the bomb dropped or whatever, so it just says the victims of the Pennyburn bombing. So here we have the grave of Tillie Hendersons. Claim to fame, he brought the shirt industry, mechanised it here in Derry, and had a huge factory. And this factory was actually mentioned in Karl Marx's Das Kapital, mentions the factory of Tillie and Hendersons in Londonderry. Down here in the old Victorian Edwardian section, this is the Brandywell here, the Bogside there, and Creggan behind us, which was Free Derry, which was like an independent state patrolled by the IRA. And the IRA, because of the danger of storing explosives in people's homes and that, we were told use these as weapon stores for obvious reasons. It's a safe place and they could lock them up, and that's why somebody said they were blocked up. And on here there used to be a lot of ambushes, and it was used for thinging. We can see bullet strikes here actually on the headstone from the Troubles. So here is the burial place of Dr. Walter Bernard. What's his claim to fame? Well, one of the most visited sites in Ireland is Green in Avelic, the Sun Fortress out here in Donegal. And up until the 1800s, it was just stones lying around. And it was Dr. Bernard here, the physician surgeon, that used his wealth to rebuild the beautiful fort that we have out there. And a lady in the tour here was telling me that this Dr. Bernard, physician surgeon, is an ancestor, a relation of the Dr. Bernard who performed the first heart transplant in South Africa. We're still working on it, but I wouldn't doubt it, given the links to the empire that exists in this section. Thank you for taking the time to see some of the great stories that we have in here, some of them particularly sad. So if you ever want to come visit, we've got maps and we can take you on a tour. We've got professional guides. You can book tours with us on our Facebook site, Friends of Derry City Cemetery, and you can also find us on TripAdvisor. I only could give you a flavour of what's involved. If you take the tour, I'm sure the feedback has been absolutely phenomenal so far. People from throughout the globe who have been fascinated by the wealth of history that we have here within the confines of this Derry City Cemetery. Thank you very much.